Sunday. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. Today's keyword is forgiveness. What a great word. I know it could have so much value. I can't tell you how honored and blessed we are to have Sarah Dawkins with us again, who really brings a big heart and a desire to support and help so many others. So with that said, chat's open. We depend on you to direct and allow us to be as relevant as we can, give you as many quality takeaways as possible. And with that said, I want to turn it over to Sarah. What's your thoughts of forgiveness? We got a couple flying in right now. Once it starts, it never stops. Omar's here. Thank you for being here. Dean's here. Kelly's here. The people who are always here, whether they're here or not, they leave such a wonderful influence on the group and the show. So, Sarah, before we get too far into comments, take it away.
Don't they just? It's so good to see people here already to join us as we go live. So forgiveness plays a huge part in the role that I do helping people. And what really is forgiveness? It's not about forgetting. It's about understanding that at times we are lacking the skills and knowledge to deal with the situations we find ourselves in. And that goes for everybody. And forgiveness is about letting go. So not everybody can find it within their heart to forgive somebody who's hurt them in their past. But if we can meet them halfway and learn to accept that that something has happened and these people have lacked the skills or the knowledge, or it's a product of their raising, or something's happened in their childhood, because we never know what other people have gone through. So if we can find it within our hearts to either accept that these persons had their own problems and struggles in their younger years that they haven't dealt with, or if we can learn to accept that other person who's hurt us has also had some issues, we can learn to let go of it, because we tend to hang on to things and think, well, I'm not going to forgive them because, they need to learn a lesson. But actually, it's never that other person. They quite often have forgotten how they made us feel or what they did to us, because it's just a part of their everyday, or they were just doing what they thought they should do, or they were just doing something on autopilot that they've been raised to think is right, or said something that they thought was appropriate at the time. It's how we take that on board. So if we can accept that that person didn't have those skills and knowledge, or had their own rough time, we can then learn to accept that they are that product of their life's experiences, and forgive if possible, to let it go. Because as I say, we carry that hurt and that burden with us for our whole lives, unless we actually look at it and deal with it and accept and acknowledge that, yes, we were hurt in the past, but why do we need to carry that hurt with us through the rest of our lives? Because that hurt, even though we bury it deep, will spill out into our lives and on other people without us even realizing it. So if we can let go and forgive that past hurt, it lightens our load. And it's not about forgetting and letting them off the hook. It's nothing to do with the other person. Forgiveness is the gift that we give ourselves to be able to let that go, to unburden ourselves. And the best part of it is once we do that forgiveness and letting go and accepting, it lightens our load for the rest of our lives going forwards, because we've let it go. So we're not carrying that weight with us. So it doesn't spill out into our life and onto other people. And the other part of it is, once we forgive and let that go, our memories of that hurt fade. They will never go, because that whatever's happened has happened. But we look at it through different eyes, without that hurt, without that anger, without that negative emotion. we just look at it. It just was. It no longer hurts us anymore because we understand what caused it, why it happened. And we've done that forgiveness for ourselves, or acceptance, to let it go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And actually, what's amazing about what you just said is you raised like 3 questions in my mind, but then answered all 3 before you finished. So, I said, well, boy, we covered that without having to cover it. And I kind of look at everything because I'm really into quality of life, balance, time efficiency. And I look at when you have an outstanding debt, and that's what unforgiving is.
Yeah.
Right? I'm short, someone's long, and it isn't right. It's not fair. And, it's all that fairness 50-50 stuff that comes into it. But if you actually look at it, like whatever's done is in the books, it's done.
Yeah.
To take it forward is to make it continue to create more pain. So I look at it selfishly, unselfishly, which is it's like a parking brake that you continue to put on your engine, right? And until you take it off, it's going to continue to distract you, slow you down, change your attitude. And is that the power you want to give a past hurt? It's almost like you lost once. Do you want to keep losing the same way without even having a chance of winning? Right? Because what happened. And the other thing is you have no idea what the other person's thinking.
No.
What do they think you owe them?
Yeah.
That they're not willing to allow themselves to be forgiven. Because all it takes is someone to reach out and just say, do me a favor, I'm just tired of this. Will you forgive me? And I'll forgive you, right?
Yeah.
It's a sentence. It's an offer, an olive branch. It's like, hey, if this is bothering you as much as it's bothering me, so actually what you're not doing is doing it for the other person. You're doing it for both people. Like, here's the key to both our handcuffs. Let's move on. And I think growth and happiness is when you have as much purity of happiness versus I mixed in 20% of regret, frustration, disappointment in I just add that flavor to things. And that's also what you project. And here's another thing. Once you forgive one person, you feel happy about it, free of it, you start thinking of the second person. And before you know it, you're releasing 6, 7 parking brakes. Yeah. And it's fun. And you know what it shows is, if nothing else, you evolved, you matured. Where you were when something happened isn't where you are now. Don't treat it the same now with the extra skills. And if you're into yourself, get real into yourself. Whatever's bothering you, if you can just make a phone call, do an email, a text, and that's it. And what do you got to lose? Nothing happens. You're where you started. So with that, let's get into the audience, because that's the most important thing. So I'm just going to go through names until I get to a juicy comment. Omar's here. Dean's here. Kelly's here. Thank you so much for everybody being here. Shanir's here. She's been a regular. Trevor's a great guy, very interesting individual, does lovely shows to help so many people. And he's really somebody you should get to know. And go to his shows. Go to everybody's shows. There's never enough knowledge you can gain, connections you could make. And when it's not happening, make it happen on somebody's show. Make it happen for somebody's show. Why not? Make it happen is the key words. Ann John's been here almost every day. Ingar, who I haven't seen in a while, she's just a wonderful individual. I've known her for years. Good morning, Ingar. Ivan's here. Got a very international crowd. Thanks for being here. Ashif has been here every day, leaving great comments. Shanir mentioned you already. Thank you. Eharan is here, a regular. So many wonderful people who have so many different stories, are open to having conversations. Grandpa Don, I take that only in reverence. Grateful to be here to learn and support you both today. I love this topic of forgiveness. The resentment I had for my mom actually led me to personal development. it is that awareness. It's, whenever you say to yourself, it's time. That's enough. By the end of the day, I'm going to do what I always should have done. And that's the best I can do right now. Trevor, great to see you. Dean's got an amazing story, tragedy to triumph, just unbelievable gentleman. I find forgiving others easier than forgiving myself. Well, that's a quality, forgiveness to yourself, to anybody, is still forgiveness. And, you feel like you're blessing somebody in a sense by letting them off the hook, by giving them clemency, by shortening their sentence, by letting them move on, and why wouldn't you want to be the better person, instead of the equal person, because equal gets you to neutral. Listening.
Can I just jump in there, Don? Because a lot of people feel the same as Dean, that it's easier to forgive other people than themselves because they hold themselves with a high regard and berate themselves. Why did I do that? What made me do that? Why did I say that? And it is, for the majority of people, easier to forgive other people than themselves. But if we can learn to treat ourselves with the same unconditional love and compassion that we would treat others with, imagine if we swap places with somebody else, what would we say to them when they needed our help and support? Well, we can use those same words for ourselves and to forgive ourselves, because we often find ourselves in situations where we don't have the skills and knowledge, and we do when we say things. And as we grow and evolve later down the line, we think, gosh, why did I say that? Or I must have hurt somebody with saying that. And yes, it's great if we can reach out and apologize and say sorry to the other person. But we must learn to forgive ourselves, because at the end of the day, we're all just having this human experience. There's no textbook to tell us how to behave and what's right and what's wrong. We grow up learning from others. And if we see the behavior in others when we're young children, quite often we'll emulate that. So until we've learned that maybe that behavior hurts other people, we will keep perpetuating that behavior. So it is about being compassionate with ourselves. And even if you need to, give yourself a hug and appreciate that you didn't have the skills and knowledge then that you do now. And even if you need to say, I forgive you, to yourself, but give yourself a hug, give yourself that unconditional love and compassion that you would give to another person if you were talking to somebody else in your situation.
That is so interesting, because what comes to mind is thinking about it. What if you truly were right? What if you were dealing with somebody who did something that there wasn't 50-50 or even a question of what it was? But if you forgave them when maybe they can't forgive themselves for what happened either, how much better do you look by being the better person for them? Why does someone have to stop loving someone who doesn't love them anymore or never did or whatever? Yeah. Right? Shouldn't you be you for you and project that you? And when you finally come to that realization, you can say that I've evolved, I've developed. This might surprise you.
Yeah.
But I've just decided to get all the people who I felt owed me something and cleared a slate. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if everybody said, give us your debts, wherever they are, hey, we'll cancel them out, you'll be debt free. In a sense, by getting forgiveness all around, you're debt free.
Yes, you are.
And all of a sudden they're debt free. I mean, banks won't do that, but you can, because it's not a house. It's a word someone said. It's an action someone took. It's whatever it is, it was, everybody knows what it is. So there's not a question. Now, what do you do with it is the question. And I think that's where progress is. Like, hey, I'm just, at a certain point, it's like cleaning a room. You just decide that whole corner's just leaving. I'm tired of even looking through it. I don't even, if I don't know what it is, maybe it's better I don't even, because I'll figure a reason to keep it. So in a way, you want to keep refreshing yourself. You want to get rid of the things that don't serve you, the ways that don't serve you. Surround yourself with people who show up that way. And what I'm realizing about some of these shows, and even this one, there are so many people can mouth the words, can express the feelings, but when it comes to replicating that in action or response, it's just not there. You know what I mean? So I think people respect sincerity, authenticity, and why not give somebody context? This is what just happened to me. I'm so excited. I'm letting you go finally. I learned how. I listened to a seminar, I listened to a tape, it clicked. I'm getting you off the hook. I mean, and wouldn't that be great? Because you're presenting it like you decided, you're doing it. You're not asking, is it okay? And you're not actually asking, what are you going to do for me? Because a lot of people say, I'll forgive you if you forgive me. If it was just words that got you into it, how are words going to get you out of it? And if that's all it took, why did it take so long? So, let's show up with these people. I'm just going to hit the meaty comments. There was just too many hellos. I love hellos, salutations. I know they mean different words, yet for me, I associate forgiveness with gratitude. I've realized that everything and everyone in life is a lesson or a blessing, and I don't have to forgive once I'm grateful the lesson or the blessing. You can take something good out of even something bad, even if it's a lesson. Dr. Joanne White's going to be here tomorrow with Dr. Marilyn Scott. It's going to be a great show. I'm trying to get some duos going on. Good morning, everyone. Forgiveness is important. Yes, it is a gift, Sarah. If we hold on to it, it becomes toxic. Yeah, it's like anything that's past its wear date. Let's go. Okay, Ashif says, forgiveness is self-freedom and liberating to all towards moving forward. Yes. Try it. You'll see the benefit. It's like taking your car in and getting it washed. You just feel cleaner, fresher, rid of it. It's about time. And you know what you say? I should have done this earlier. Jamie's here. Good morning. Haven't seen Jamie a little bit. Wonderful, wonderful lady. Cindy's here. Thank you so much. Kinga. Going to have Kinga on the show. It's nice just to have this negative energy just put behind you. There's too much already that you got to deal with because you got to deal with it. You don't got to take more than you need with you. Loved us so much, Melissa Cohen. I just talked to her this week. Regret is such a useless emotion. Love the idea of extending the olive branch. When you're extending the olive branch, you're on one side of it too. So you're participating. Here's something. Growth is akin to planting a sapling. Happiness is nurturing it, grow to a great canopy, safety, shady, comfort. Another thing is, why not shake things up? Why don't you, do a few different things? It doesn't have to be earth shattering, just improvement. There were two lessons that were the hardest for me to learn. One, you are where you are because of decisions that you did and didn't make. Two, you have let other people make their choices because it's their life, not yours. So true. Sarah, what do you think?
Yes. And I really like that. We are responsible for ourselves. And as Paul just said, we are where we are because of what we've done or what we've not done. And we can rectify any of those situations. What we've done, if we've done something we didn't like, we can forgive ourselves and maybe verbally forgive the other person if we've hurt them and we're able. But also the second part of it is about letting go and understanding that people are their own responsibility. We're not responsible for other people. So we can't hold them to our standards because not everybody's, some are below us, some are above us. And we can't judge that person. So part of forgiveness in not doing something or doing nothing for somebody else is understanding that they are responsible, and we need to let go and accept that person is responsible for themselves, and we don't have that responsibility. And that was a big one for me as well, Paul. I want to go into the world and save everybody. And that was a huge lesson for me that A, I can't save everybody, and B, not everybody wants saving, and that was really difficult lesson for me to understand, because I'm thinking, well, everybody surely wants to heal and grow, but no, they don't. And once we accept that we're all responsible for ourselves, we can then let go of that need to go in and fix others or make them happy or help them to grow and evolve and heal. We have to let them go and let them be and do what they want to when they want. All we can do is plant a seed and then let them be with it. And it's their responsibility whether they want to take that forwards and do something about it, or whether they want to stay in that position, because many people are stuck. But there's some people that don't want to heal. As much as I'd like to go in and help them, my help's being shunned because they're not in a position to let go, because their life has become familiar, and we get comfortable in the familiar. And if they grew and healed and changed and evolved, their whole world would change and evolve with them. And that is stepping into an unknown, and not everybody's comfortable or has the courage and confidence to step into that unknown. So they stay in that familiar situation and they stay stuck. And as much as we keep wanting to help them, they don't want the help because they haven't got the ability to step through into the unknown. So we have to accept that it is their responsibility, not ours. And if they don't want to grow and heal and evolve, then we need to be okay with that and leave them in their world.
Well, that really speaks to timing and positioning. So nothing is an absolute. Everybody would love to get better. Everybody would love to have more. Everybody would love to be more. But it's getting up and doing something, leaning against it. But you're so right. It's like if you were running a hospital, right? You would say, who needs the most help right now, who I can help, right? And there's so many people who need help. You should only look for the people who already have their hand up and are obvious, and they come in to help the right way. Because if you spend your time with the people who are resisting initially, because what I always found is when you got to sell someone to bring them in, you got to sell someone to keep them in, right? And now it's your obligation to prove something or deal with doubt or lack of motivation. And that's just too much, because it's more than you have to offer and it's less than they can provide. So what you're saying is you want to connect the right elements to each other, so everybody you touch, you can give the most benefit. And that's what shows like this do, because it's like a circular firing squad. Is you got 49 people sharing things with 49 or less other people at any time. And with that, people decide, I got too much to do. That's when I'm going to start forgiving, right? When someone left somebody who left them broke, and when they get their $1 million house and they can send the other person a picture, that's when they forgive typically. And the point is you don't need that, and you may never get that. And what you're doing is making something dependent on something else that has nothing to do with what you're dealing with. So it's uncomplicating, simplifying, and just say, maybe I'm just so generous. Maybe I'm so benevolent to do this to this person. Maybe 1 million people would never agree, but it's what makes me happy, right? And it's just the way I am. Maybe that makes me 1 in a million. And maybe that's what you want to ascribe to be, but not because you had the nicest place, but because you left the biggest legacy. And that's what I see the world. If people want to change it, it's the person next to you, where you can make immediate change. And it could be little things. And that's why daily is so important. It's like a vitamin, a supplement. You take it once, nothing's going to happen. If you take it over time, things can happen. And I think that's the key to forgiveness, is saying, I got to move on. I got things, I got people. I can't pay attention to this anymore. but do it before you have those people, and you'll end up getting those people, right? Because that could be the blockage or the speed bump you're dealing with. Well, anyways, real quick, let's get some more comments. Forgiveness is precious. We should offer it without coercion. The
Yes.
easier you give it, the less meaningful it is, because, you know, I'll tell you, when you can say, I forgive you more, you'll say, I love you more too. And you'll start saying other things more that you know are worth saying, but something is stopping you. And it could be ego, it could be pride, it could be whatever it is. But take the emergency brake off and give you free sailing. Matt's here. Matt's a great guy. We are the miracle. Kinga's here. Wow, that's really beautiful. Visiting my parents, sometimes I see traits in myself that pop up, and I see where it comes from, and helps me see myself from a different perspective. It helps me have more self-awareness too. Well, you know, I think everybody is deeper than they give themselves credit for, richer than they give themselves credit for, more capable. And let your heart be your guide. You know, and that's what I do when something comes to me and it just says, you got to do this. And then my brain will catch up and then justify or unjustify, or maybe ask a few people, but your heart still says the same thing as your brain's conjuring, because that's when you get situational. That's when you get contextual. You know, I was talking, somebody was on the show and they said they were traveling and they saw their fellow coworker who had just passed them. And the person had said hello to them and the person never said hello back. And for the next 3 days, the person said, I can't believe that person saw me here, didn't say hello. I'm sure they saw me. And then when they got back to the office a week or two later, she couldn't help herself. She said, listen, we were in Jamaica or whatever. We saw each other. I said, oh, you didn't. And he's like, I was there, but I never saw you. And meanwhile, for like 4 days, this whole mystery.
Yeah.
And until she could have just said, I trust maybe there's more to it, or I'm not going to focus until I have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that's so very important. Let me see if there's, oh, here's one. I'm just getting the bigger ones. Okay. Forgive them, oh Lord, they know not what they do. Can it be better? Well, you know, the key is forgiveness is been around since people have been walking the earth. It's something that everybody felt, because it usually starts with betrayal of some sort, which then lends itself, can I forgive something like this? And it could be a million other things. Christy's here. Christy's on Fridays. Great. Dave Snell, another wonderful individual. We deserve happiness, and living in the regrets of the past with nothing positive for us in the now. If you had to schedule your day every 10 minutes, you would never put, 10 minutes for regret, 20 minutes for frustration, you know, but you end up in that slot, right? Because your mind directed you. If you would be aware of when you fall into that slump, to say, you know, I just became aware we're moving on, you know, we're going to take a walk, we're going to do something. Yesterday is heavy, put it down.
Yeah.
You know, they say, don't look back unless you want to go back, you know, and throw away your rear view mirror. Okay, now we're getting into grace is important too. I remind myself the world has changed so much, and the previous generations didn't have the resources what we do today. Empathy is also an important part of the forgiveness. It's so right. I guess you could speak to that, Sarah.
It is, absolutely, because when we understand that the person who's hurt us has been through some awful times, or has had some awful things done to them, or had struggles within their childhood, if we can understand that, we can empathize with that person and understand why they are like they are. And not, as I said before, not everybody is self-aware. Not everybody's going to take the responsibility and go, I was hurt and this is causing me to act like this, and therefore I need to change. But if we can see that in other people, we can accept, which is a huge part of understanding why they're like they are. If we can accept that, to be able to let it go, so that it doesn't trigger us, because we're accepting. It's not the harsh words that they're using against us isn't a reflection of us. It's a reflection of what they've been through in their past, and it's their past hurts spilling out onto us, and they quite often aren't even aware of what they're doing, because they haven't opened that hurt, that wound that they've stuffed down so far and put a lid on it to be never opened again. So if we can accept that and understand they've got a really deep and serious wound, we can accept that their harsh words, their behavior towards us isn't actually a reflection of us. It's a reflection of their own wounds. And that's where the empathy comes in. We can understand what they're feeling because of what they've been through.
Yeah, and I also, because forgiveness is situational, so you'll forgive based on this. But the other thing I was thinking is, when you do forgive somebody, you may get some more context that you weren't aware of.
Yeah.
All right, I forgive you for doing this to me. And somebody would say, well, you didn't know this, but my uncle died that morning and I didn't want to say anything. And I was just angry. Whatever it is, it doesn't change what happened. It just, well, if I'd have known that, right, I might have not been as whatever it was. And you see, what you're going from is conflict to conversation. Where you have people at opposite ends who aren't talking, who aren't trusting, who now have a conversation that doesn't take two to have or complete. Because it's you forgiving somebody. It's not saying, I hope they can forgive me. Because when you put that, now it's conditional again.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. Can you give it to me back? It's like, well, you allow that person to decide maybe at their given time. And maybe it's going to take them seeing a seminar to say, oh, now I get it. But as long as they're lost, that's not your responsibility anymore. And hopefully you see a freer way to live.
Yeah. And also it puts the onus on that other person to validate our feelings. And we don't need that validation. We feel what we feel because that's what we feel. And only we are in charge of what we feel. And so only we can understand why we're feeling what we're feeling. And we should be able to not need that forgiveness from somebody else, because we shouldn't need that validation. We should be able to say, well, I maybe forgive myself for acting like I did. And then it's up to that other person. If they want to forgive us, they can, whether it's verbally to our face, whether it's in their own mind. But we shouldn't need or wait for somebody else to forgive us. We should be able to let go of that and move forward, knowing that if we can forgive ourselves for ourselves and forgive others for whatever they've done or said or not done, that in itself is more about accepting the situation, accepting who we are, who they are, what's happened, to be able to let it go. Because forgiveness is about letting go of that hurt, that heavy feeling, that burden that we hold within ourselves from our past. If we can let go of that, it really truly lightens our load moving forwards, and it stops clouding our judgment as well. So a big part of it is forgiving ourselves for what's happened and situations we've found ourselves in, to be able to move forwards without carrying that weight and that burden.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you make so many good points. One is forgiving oneself is identifying what is it you need to forgive of yourself.
Yeah.
And why can't you forgive yourself when you have the ability?
Yeah.
Right? You're the highest court when it comes to appealing your own case to yourself. Why can't you, if you're that generous to the world, if your intentions are so wonderful, how come it doesn't start with what's right in front of you? And the other thing is that really makes a huge difference is shared responsibility, right? Is to say, okay, whatever the percentage, 80, 20, whatever, if I wouldn't have done the 20, maybe the 80 would have never happened.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't change that, but you can say, what am I creating that I might have to forgive down the road?
Yeah.
You know,
And that takes awareness.
Yeah. And that's why I always take more time on important actions. Thinking you could take time and not time because it doesn't mean anything until you do something with it. But when you're actually hitting enter, that's the time you want to say, and I do, hey, come back in 30 minutes. And what I always tend to do is just tell what I needed to tell, not hammer it, not blame it. I mean, this is all you need to know, and it's better this way. Because if one says, and I want to tell you why, and it's also, it's like, hey, you just told me what it is. What do you got to like hammer it 10 times?
Yeah.
And that's where you can create, well, this is how they did it. Not it's here, I was guilty. They called me out. They shared it. That would have been enough. But now they did this on top of it,
Yeah.
which now it's just, you got to think things through especially when it comes to relationships, when you're on a social platform. There's so much that can be mistold, and all of a sudden you can't you can't unring a bell. So,
Yes.
you have to be very careful. And that's why having discipline, and the discipline is taking action when it appears, right? If there's a bunch of bees in the house, you're going to take action before you get stung.
Yes.
Right. And so anyways, it can get pretty deep. Let's just go into Omar has forgiveness is so important. It will make you feel better and healthier. I mean, these are testimonials, and I believe they are worth trying. You grow up in respect by forgiving. Absolutely. You're a better person when you go around and you give, like I say, leniency, clemency. And it's not that you minimize the seriousness of it. It's like it's time has come and gone. That's all. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't make the person better. It just says, I'm done. You're not in my mind anymore. This resonates with me so much, Kinga says. It is others' responsibility to grow, heal, and evolve. We can leave them if they aren't ready for that. Who needs the most help? We should only look for the people who need help. Don't spend time with the people. And it finishes with who are resisting. Don't sell to someone when you could help someone who is raising their hand. Yeah, I mean, you want to be as efficient as you can with the value you can bring. We cannot become what we want to be by remaining what we are. Max Dupree. You're so right, Ashif, because for things to change, you need to change. And you got to ask yourself what's serving you, what isn't. It's just like you look yourself in the mirror and you say, well, a little disheveled here, a little this, a little that. You can look at your feelings and say, why am I feeling anger today? Why, when I've had loops where a person will live in your mind for 3 days, and because you don't know how to deal with it, and you want to deal with this way, but you decide it wouldn't work that way, even though it should work that way, So let me see if we have any bigger ones.
And can I, while you're looking, Don, I'll just touch on that as well, because a lot of people aren't feeling, they're thinking. And they will think, what's happened? Why has it happened? Why is this happening? Why did they say that? What's going on there? And they're totally logically, rationally trying to work it out. Whereas if they can get in touch with what they're feeling, where am I feeling this in my body? What am I feeling? Is my stomach in knots? Have I got a pain in the bum, literally? What's going on in my head? What's that pain in my head? And really get in touch with the feelings as well to understand, because it's okay thinking about it logically and rationally, but we need to come back into our bodies and understand what it feels like to us, because not a lot of people are in their body, they're out of their body, they're in their head. So if we can bring it back, and maybe we can resolve some, we've had, say, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, where the bowels are in spasm or painful. And it's because of something that's happened. The head pains, the headaches, is stress related, and it's because of something that's happened. And if we can start relating what's happened, what's been said, what have I done, what's somebody else done, how is my body reacting to it, we become more aware of ourselves and more self-aware of how we react to other people, because some people are so dissociated that they can have stress causing irritable bowel and causing migraines and causing just regular headaches, but will say that they're not stressed. And yet their body is screaming that they're stressed with the symptoms. So the forgiveness, what is it that we need to forgive? But where am I feeling that in my body? Why does my body feel like it does? Why is my bowels all screwed up together? Why have I got pain in my backside? Why have I got headache? How has that person affected me? And then as we start to understand, become self-aware, reflect, and understand what our body is saying, we can then start the act of letting go, forgiving, and understanding from that other person's point of view as well, why they did what they did potentially.
Well, to add to that, and I think that's so valid, is when I think of people not being able to forgive somebody, it's because they're not able to confront that person, right? So they're afraid of the person. They have all these things, and they're not being unforgiving because they don't want to be, but they don't want to get back into that energy or whatever it is. And that's your heart talking again. And that's why one says, well, then again, how do I deliver this message without confrontation? Right? So you don't have a Zoom, or you don't have a call, you have an email, you have a text. You keep it very simple. Whatever your message should be, whatever your forgiveness needs to be from you to release it for you.
Yes. Right? And because it's not about that other person, it's always about you.
Exactly.
You don't always have to send it as a message or an email or a phone call or face to face. As long as you, within your own body, acknowledge that you are forgiving that person for whatever it is that they've done. We don't physically have to tell them we've forgiven them, but if we can let go of that from within inside of us, we can let go of a whole range of symptoms and problems. When I was at school, at secondary school, I was bullied terribly by 3 girls who weren't really friends. So it wasn't a gang. They were independent of each other. And I was terrified of all 3 of them. And it wasn't until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, so a long time after I've left school, I found out one of the girls was being sexually abused by her dad. And she was then obviously taking that out on me. But at the time, she made my life hell. And so we never know what somebody else is going through, even if they have a severe impact on our lives. So for 40 years, I never knew that poor girl was going through any of that. And as I've done my healing, I've managed to forgive her and let go, because now I know what was going on anyway. But even if I hadn't, I would know that something would have been happening in her life to cause her to behave the way she did towards me. Because I tried to stay away from her. I never did anything to her at all. I would literally put distance between ourselves. But it didn't stop us. So we have no idea what other people are going through in their lives. And they can be brutally horrible to us. But it's not a reflection of us. It's a reflection of something going on in their lives. And if we can accept that, even if we don't understand it, just accept it. That in itself lightens the burden on us.
Yeah, that's so true. And, I look at it from a standpoint of whatever someone did or does to somebody, when that somebody leaves that person's still with themselves, right? They're still having that fire that they can't put out, that wherever they go, it just flames everything around them, including themselves. And, there's no excuse for things that aren't excusable, but they do happen. It is reality. Some people suffer more, but everybody suffers. Yeah. Some people have major things, some people have minor things, but everybody can at least empathize.
Yeah.
say, does it make it right if someone has a reason or they don't have a reason? It doesn't matter, does it? And at what point does the reason matter? Well, this person got hit with a baseball bat. Well, that's not quite a good enough reason to be in that mood. I mean, then you're getting into judge and jury.
Yes.
The other aspect of it, and I think it's so important, is the forgiveness that is required is the most comfortable for you to give. It's your gift. You
Yes.
should pick it out. You should gift wrap it. And you're right. If you can just make an affirmation to the universe, say, I release this person, I forgive this person, and let the universe carry that message,
Yes.
will, you won't have to be confrontational. You don't have to have them even know they're forgiven because you did it for you. And if you make them known, it's almost like you're showing off, or you're more righteous, or you want to go back and rekindle something that you're glad you put to bed and you don't have to deal with. So you don't want to reopen a wound, right? You just want to move on from one. And the fastest you can move on, however it is, and that's, I think, is self personal development, because it's you. Let's just run through these real quick. Lachelle's here. Lachelle, I don't know if everybody knows you, but was on the show. 15 children Lachelle has, with
Wow.
10 still at home. So she calls herself the super mom. And she's got a show that she's on. I'm so proud of all these people. Ronald Henderson's here. Haven't seen him in a while. Let me see. Here's Dean. Dean's just great. Sarah Dawkins, self-forgiveness. How do we keep that from turning into shame and self-esteem problems?
Shame and guilt come about as a feeling about something that we've done to ourselves or to others in the past. And we need to be able to let go of that, as in we need to understand that whatever it was that we did or said or didn't do in the past, we did at that time with the knowledge and the skills that we had at that time. And now we've self-reflected and grown and evolved, we can start to forgive ourselves if we had an issue with what we did or didn't do or said. So it's about, again, bringing that compassion to ourselves to let it go. And self-esteem or ego? Our self-esteem, it will help our self-esteem to understand that we didn't have the skills and knowledge that we needed. How do we self-esteem problems? And hopefully that will lift our self-esteem, because we are forgiving our younger self, because anything that's happened in the past is our younger self. So it will help us to learn and grow, and we can look back at it and understand it's happened because we were lacking in some aspect. So as long as we are willing to self-reflect and understand what we did and how it affected somebody else, we can know that we won't do that again, because we've reflected on how it would have made them feel, how it made us feel. So to move forwards in letting go of that, acknowledge that we don't like what we did or didn't do and our behavior at that time, but we now learned from that, and to move it forwards, we're not going to do that again. That was an older version of ourselves, and we've evolved and we've grown and we've become more compassionate and more loving. So moving forwards, it's about making sure we don't do that again. But chances are we wouldn't, because of self-reflection. So it will boost our self-esteem because we know that we've grown and learned and evolved. I mean, and like you've said, we can offer the olive branch. We can have a conversation with that person through email, on the phone, face to face, or we can put it out to the universe. But the act of letting that go and forgiving in itself is empowering to ourselves, because it's an acknowledgement that we've reflected on that behavior. We didn't like whatever it was that we did or didn't do. So to move it forwards, we know that we won't do that, because we know it's hurt us or hurt somebody else, and we don't want to do that. And that's where empathy feeds in, because we understand how it feels. So It's about not berating ourselves and taking the berating ourselves forward into the future, but accepting to let it go. Again, it's about offloading the weight of what we did in our younger self. Forgive it, let it go.
Yeah, what's so cool about what you said is when I think now of forgiveness, it's usually to deal with entanglements, something that you can't get out of, you're stuck in, or it's stuck on you, you know? And in order to reach alignment with yourself, that's the opposite of entanglement, right? So you almost have to get out to get back in. And that has stolen some of what made you align into something that allowed you to get entangled in an unchangeable situation. So, with that said, how do you leave someone knowing what it could be if you leave the wrong way? What are the last words you say to someone that led it to, some people could just say goodbye, and then some people have to stay for the next sentence. Goodbye, and you're this. Goodbye, and I feel that. And that's what's going to echo, was not the goodbye, and they say anytime you say but, everything before the but means nothing, right? I think you're just the smartest person, but when you do this, it's so dumb, or something like that. So words mean something, and you carry those words, and that's where the shame and embarrassment says is, I should have never said that. I wish I never said that. I don't know what I was thinking. And you could say this, but just for the same reason someone doesn't need an excuse, there's no excuse that justifies you carrying guilt and shame and embarrassment because of words. Right? I mean, it's one thing to act, and even then you should be more forgiving. But just, why did I say this? What does it say about me? And maybe I need to get forgiveness more than I think. And maybe it starts with me, because that's where you want to get, is to the start. Like we talked about, you go after people, everybody needs help, but not everybody wants to do anything to participate in it. It's the same thing. What am I getting into? Because the first time was a mistake, or I never knew. The second time I knew, and I still did it, and I should expect it. So it shouldn't be disappointing. It shouldn't be, anything but a repetition of what I already knew to be true. And it just validated it, and I think if you have high enough aspirations, if you're in a strong enough support group, the people are all already not doing what you're doing. They say you're the factor of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? If you did something that was totally unrealistic and unnecessary, if they loved you, they'd say, what are you bothering? What are you majoring in the minors for? What are you getting caught up? You're actually worried about that person and what they said, and this is what's been taken over your mind. I mean, that's all. You're right. You're so right. And I think that's the key, is to get right, and not from right and wrong, but right with alignment, right where you wake up every morning and you're looking forward to building on the starts and the beginnings you have, not dealing with the endings that never came to be the way you wanted, right? The story begins every day, not from yesterday. But anyways, we're almost towards the top of the hour. Melissa says empathy is a superpower. Here we go. Let me see. Lachelle says, I love Oprah's quote, forgiveness is letting go of the hope that the past could have been any different.
Yeah.
So true. And these people are successful because of what they say and think and share. Conflict to conversation, make the first move in faith and developing trust. And know that everything and everybody's a work in progress, right? And maybe if it's a one-time deal, maybe there's some room for being a little bit more trusting. Here we go with a lot of people. Paul's great with his comments. I remember the first event I spoke at, my final closing message was a quote I wrote to my mom. Thank you for the actions you didn't take, because it caused me to change my life. However you put it in a form, that says, hey, that's livable, that's lovable, and I'm happy, and just keep closing little loose ends. Leslie's here. She'll be here Tuesday with Andrea. Forgive ourselves requires what thoughts will now replace them. Trevor is Unleashing Hotness. Okay, I forgot Trevor's show is Unleashing Hotness. I believe it's Saturdays. Check it out if you really want to meet some new people and learn some more. Here's one from Anjan, Spirit a Rod, Spoiled a Child. Forgiveness, yes, but a different perspective. Well, forgiveness is, and that's what's so cool about words. They're different to everybody based on context, application, who you're dealing with, a million things. But that's where you should come down to the basics, the most comfortable, least provocative thing if you want to close something out. Don't open another door by trying to close a past one. Forgiveness is the power that breaks the chains of bitterness and anger and sets you free from the shackles of your own prison. You're right, Paul. Everybody's got keys to the jail cell they're in. All they got to do is use them. Sad when childhood feelings are squashed and disregarded, then one must learn to cope and adapt in society. So true. And it's Sarah?
Yeah, as an unseen, unheard child whose feelings and thoughts weren't validated, I totally get that. And we end up looking for outside validation always because we weren't validated as children. We have to start looking inwards, accept that we weren't validated because of our parents' own traumas and emotional problems and hurts. They couldn't validate us because they didn't know how to, because of their own upbringings or something that's happened to them. So remind yourself, we don't need external validation. We only need to validate ourselves. We feel what we feel. Nobody can take that away from us, whether it's validated or not. We are still feeling it. Even if nobody validates it, we are still feeling it. So accept that you feel it is the first step, and let go of that need for external validation.
Yeah, and here's the thing, it's a day-to-day thing. Tomorrow, if you feel differently, then you'll do differently. It's not like cement, and that's what being in the moment, being in alignment with yourself, being true to yourself, because if you don't take care of you, nobody else will. No one else can. Nobody knows what you need, when you need it, and how you need it. And anything you'll get will be not perfect, and maybe not on time, and maybe a portion of it. So if you look at yourself in a journey and not as a destination, if you look at the joy you get from just trying new things, and when it doesn't work, you're still proud you did it. Like I always say, the next thing to playing and winning is playing and losing, because you're playing, right? How many people won't get on the dance floor because they say, I just don't know how to dance? Well, if you define dance as just moving, anything that's comfortable, then you're a dancer. Why have such a high threshold for you to say, I'd love to get in the game, but people will see me, they'll laugh at me, and I'm thinking, I never ever thought that in my life, but that's what makes everybody different. And it also blesses people, because just because you can move through something doesn't mean, hey, hold my hand, we're going to walk through it together. Some people just have fears and things that are going to take time. And that's why I always believe the opposite of having to forgive people is having people who are appreciative of what you did, and have you appreciative of what they did, and now you honor them forever. You let them live in your head through gratitude. I mean, whether it's a family member or somebody that just came into your life at the necessary time, and it didn't have to be a long time, to redirect you or to give you support that allowed you to become who you were. And I think that's the key to what we want to build here, is give everybody a fair beginning. It's like etch a sketch, just wipe off everything and start with a clean slate. And you can, when I was doing restructurings, I'm not getting too deep in it, it was always about not bringing legacy into the future. That didn't work anymore. That was so key. So let me see if there's any real larger ones. Dean says, thanks. I'm fascinated how this is what I needed to hear at exactly the right time. Well, we then achieved everything we went out to do today. If it's just one, if it's 1,000. And you know what we're saying is we're giving everybody opportunities to identify what forgiveness has been for them, what it is now, what it could be. And it's really like getting a tune-up in your car. You know, it's like, hey, going in there, kind of tightening up all the loose stuff, you know, replacing all the stuff that's not working as well as it used to. And then maybe modernizing and say, hey, I want to add something I never had to this picture. You know, you paint as boldly and as beautifully as your brush strokes allow, you know, and what are we waiting for? Whatever you're going to do tomorrow, you're still going to have a chance to do tomorrow. You didn't have to choose, do I do it today or tomorrow? I can do it today and tomorrow, and I can do it forever if I want. And if you give yourself that license that I'm unstoppable, especially if we're dealing with universe, energy, intention, you know, while you're forgiving somebody, why don't you send them some love with it too? They're never going to see it, you know, but you'll know you sent it, you know, and maybe they'll feel it somehow. So in closing, what's your thoughts, Sarah, about this wonderful show, this great audience, and this topic?
Oh, it's fabulous. I love how everybody has fed into it and shared some of their own experiences and enhanced it with their own experiences. But what I would say as well is that we don't have to start over every day. Every minute of every day is a new moment to start your life, how you want to live it, to let go of what's gone, because we can't change the past. So we need to accept it, to let it go. There's nothing we can do about it. All we can do is look at it through different eyes, and forgiveness and acceptance gives us those different eyes. And when we do that, we can change not just our future, but also our present, our here and now, right now, when we look at it through new eyes, because we've let go of what's gone in the past and come from our hearts. Do everything from your heart, because you want to do it from a place of love, because love heals all.
Oh, I mean, and that is the answer, you know, to arrive at is love, is in a state of love where, you know, how do you beat? I haven't found anything that's more exciting, more healthy, more valuable and scarce at so many times that when you find it, that's where you want to plant your flag. You want to enjoy it. You want to dive into it, you know, and keep it as much as you can. And the way to do it is to circulate it. Once you get it, don't hold on to it, share it. You know, and would you mind if someone, when they saw you or saw your name, saying, that is the most loving person I've ever met. She just is so loving. And wouldn't that be the only thing you'd ever have to hear? Because who cares whether you're intelligent or they think you're this or that, but if they say, then I've achieved it, you know, then I've been validated for my whole intention and being. And that's what people should say. How far from love am I?
Yes.
And is forgiveness the thing that is minimizing that my ability to enjoy it more, longer, better? Because see, we always talk about improving, replacing, redirecting. Once you're there, it's not more replacing, it's now building with it.
Yeah.
You know, and now you don't have to worry about qualifying people, trusting this, trusting that, because now you got all the ingredients that you chose, that you determined were right, and it's in front of you. Then it's about putting them together, baking the most beautiful cake or pie you could ever imagine. And that's what we can all do, is be a pie maker, a cake maker, you know, but with love filling, you know. So anyway, we can go on and go on, and we do so great, because I know everything I said today, I would have never thought or said if I wasn't in the setting I am, right? And everything I said will continue to be heard for ever, right? This is a legacy of forgiveness that people can use as a tool. And that makes me so glad, because I always say, I'm so gratified by the people here today and what's gone on, but I'm even more thankful for all the people I'll never meet or see that hear these messages that are evergreen and universal and could change a life that dominoes and changes and ripples. So that's what gets me excited and makes me want to do this all the time. So thank you all. Come back tomorrow. Dr. Marilyn, Dr. Joanne will be here. Can't wait to have Sarah back. Words don't have to describe her. She's already projected that to everybody. So thank you again. Have a lovely day, and be safe, and let's keep forgiving.